Scrubs, I hope you're well. So in this video today I'm going to be talking about, do you need breeding horses to join a competitive GP team? So to start off with, I'm going to be talking about pair and back breeding in this video, and if you don't know what those are, please go and watch my video on that. I will link it in the comments under this video, so please watch that before you watch this one, because I don't want to confuse anyone if you don't know those concepts already. The other thing is I'm not going to be talking about blopping or anything like that in this video. That's not what this video is for. So this video is to explain to people who have never been in a team that is focused on genetic potential, therefore being the best genetic of its breed, or maybe on the whole server, how they will be introduced to the team's horses. Because quite often I find that people who haven't been in a genetic team before go into the team thinking, oh, I need to bring breeding horses with me. Therefore, say if it was a Connemara team, you might think I need to bring Connemara breeding stock with you to breed to the team's horses. And that's very, very unlikely. Very unlikely with an established GP team. You might be asked to bring fillers, you might be asked to bring agent point hunters, but the reason that teams are very unlikely going to want you to bring any breeding stock from outside is because whenever a team is breeding horses, they are focused on one bloodline, and they are, if they're doing it effectively, are making sure all the resources go into that one bloodline. Because if you think about it, if it's a VIP team with 20 people, they're not going to want 20 separate players in a team working on 20 separate bloodlines, or 10 separate bloodlines, or 5 separate bloodlines. If it's a GP team, they want to work on one bloodline as 20 people. So they take all 20 resources from those 20 separate people and put it into that one bloodline and make that bloodline really good, really quickly, and as effectively as possible. So I'm going to be focusing when I do this explanation on back breeding, not so much pair breeding. So obviously make sure you have watched that video if you haven't already. So in this example, I've got a bunch of horses here that have been bred with back breeding. Therefore, they are bred back to their best genetic parent, and this means that there's only one horse that the team needs to focus on, because with pair breeding there'll be 2 horses that the team will be blopping simultaneously. Now that can have its benefits. It can mean that you get slightly bigger gains, but I find that it's just easier to keep track of back breeding compared to pair breeding. I'm not going to tell you which to use. It depends on what your team's using. Ask your team. But to start off with, basically, if you think about it this way, right, this mare here, okay, is the best of this set of Connemaras, okay, she's this one here. Okay, so basically, this is the best GP one. When you join a team, if you have been successful in the application process, and you're joining the team, and everything else has been explained to you, basically what you'll be given to do is at some stage you'll be given the best genetic blop. Okay, so basically the best horse the team has, and you'll be expected to blop that. Okay, once you blop that, then your horse will be bred back to one of the other team's horses to produce offspring. Whether if you have the colt, then you'll be providing the covers to whoever has the mare. If you have the mare, then one of the team will be giving you stallion covers to breed out from that mare. And the reason for this is because it means the team is focusing on one line horses. Okay, so if we just go and have a look at this horse, this is horse's sort of genetic history here. So Filly Blup was by Spooky Forest, okay, and Spooky Forest is out of Beach, and Beach was out of Ambassador, and Ambassador was out of this filly. Okay, so if we have a look here, you can also see that there's a bunch of foals in between here, these other horses that haven't had anything done with them. They're all still foals. Okay, so if we have a look here, okay, so if we just go here, I'm just going to go to Spooky Forest. So if you look at Spooky Forest offspring, you can see here that there's the one that's being blopped right now by the team, and the other ones are essentially not used. So basically, to explain this, if you had the mare, the top mare of your team, okay, and you produced 10 foals, you might be thinking, oh, I better blop all of these 10 foals, or I better get my teammates to help me blop all of these 10 foals. There's absolutely no point in that. And the reason for this is, if you were to then spend 10 horses worth of resources blopping all those 10 foals that are all around the same GP, okay, and you breed them, you're going to end up with another bunch of foals, all with very, very similar GP. There's no benefit to that. What's smarter to do is to have that mare breed your bunch of foals. You might breed 10 foals. Pick the best foal out of those 10 ignore the other 9, blup that foal, the best foal out of the bunch, maybe one of your teammates blups it, and then breed that foal back to its parent, and then you're going to end up with some more foals which have higher GP than the parent, and they have higher GP than that one that you've just blupped. Okay? And then blup out of those offspring, the best one out of that, and disregard the rest, and continue that pattern. And if you did that for 10 consecutive generations, that means you would get 10 generations of brand new GP, and most likely higher GP than what you started off with. Whereas if you had stayed with that one bunch of 10 and you'd bred them once, you would have ended up with a bunch of foals with very similar GP, rather than climbing higher with your GP. So just to explain this, for example, here is Rebellion. Okay, so Rebellion is 4001 to 201. So Rebellion was bred to the highest GP parent, which is Applause, which then produced Solar Flare. As you can see, Solar Flare is a higher GP than both Rebellion and the Applause, and then Solar Flare is bred back to Rebellion, which then produces this one, which is higher GP again than both of those, and then this one is bred back to Solar Flare, which then produces Ambassador, and Ambassador is then bred back to this one, which then produces Beach. And you can see that then Beach is bred back to Ambassador, and then that produces Spooky Forest, and then Spooky Forest is bred back to Beach, which then produces our filly blup up here. So this is what I mean. This is about using your resources effectively as possible. So your whole team is going to focus on that one line of horses. So obviously the team should be taking turns on who blups the best horse. Obviously that is a part of it, but it's about making sure that the team works as one on one line of horses. So this is what I kind of wanted to explain, because I feel like I've had a lot of questions in the past from people who are joining teams or asking me about teams, you know, oh, what kind of horses should I have, what GP should I be before I go and ask this team, can I join? And what I'm saying to you is, if it's a GP team that you're joining, they don't want you to bring another stock. They just want you to focus on the stock that they've already got and work as a team on that stock to produce as high a genetic as quickly as possible, basically. So they're not going to want you to waste time breeding a bunch of extra foals to just randomly blup them and they go nowhere, because that's not an effective use of their time or their resources. They want you to focus on that one set bloodline. So I hope this has been helpful and explained that a little bit better to people. Obviously, if you have more questions, feel free to leave them below, because this has been a question that's cropped up time and time again for me, with people asking about teams, and I felt like I needed to kind of address it and explain, because obviously the team might want you to have epi hunters or fillers, and obviously if you don't know what those kind of horses are, please go and check out my videos on those, but a team is going to want you to use the resources that you have, because if you have 10 horses worth of resources to blup, they're not going to want you to waste them on getting next to no genetic gain. They want to make sure that those go into 10 generations worth of horses. Or if you had 100 resources worth of horses, you know, you could make sure you did 100 generations rather than getting maybe 1 or 2 generations done. So that is why it's so important that you are sure. If you don't know, then ask the team. Ask them, are they using pair breeding? Are they using back breeding? What is expected of you? You know, clear those things up. Ask those kinds of questions, because don't assume, because some teams will assume that you know. Some teams will try and clarify, so they make sure that you know. And obviously, do take direction, you know, because they'll say, right, this is the blup that's available right now. They're not going to want another 5 people saying, here's also another blup, because that's not going to work. Just make sure that you understand, and if you don't, ask them questions. And if they're, you know, if they're a good team, obviously they'll probably help. Obviously, don't apply to a team that really is so competitive that they're not going to have the time to do that, because you want to make sure that you know your stuff before you go to apply for those kinds of teams, because some of those teams are so high intensity that they do not want to waste time trying to explain these kinds of things to people, because they just don't have the time. So yeah, I hope this video has been helpful. If you have any further questions, leave them below. I hope you had a lovely day, scrubs, and bye bye!